Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's InstructLab today's InstructLab community meeting. Today is the 8th of October. Before we start to go on to the notes for the meeting, I do want to cover a few things. All meetings are covered with the InstructLab Community Code of Conduct, which is essentially be nice to each other and be kind. All of the meetings are going to be recorded and will be posted on the InstructLab YouTube channel. So if you don't want your face to be on video, then you can feel free to turn off the camera. Or if you don't want your name to be visible as well, then you can also join via phone number. With the meeting, raise your hand if you want to ask questions. If you are on phone, then just unmute and speak when you think is appropriate. We are also tracking people who joined the meeting with the attendee list at the bottom of the notes. So if you could please share your name, we would love to see all the people that joined the meetings. So to start off, I have been promoted from community member. I've been promoted to community maintainer when I sent in my application a month ago. So it's nice to finally be approved. Thank you very much for the graffiti and the thumbs up. Version 0.19.2 has also been released for InstructLab. If somebody would like to give a few details on that, then please feel free to do so.
Yeah, so this release was kind of minor, but contained a couple of critical fixes for a few things. So there was one fix in there for the new full training pipeline that really improves learning. Like the learning rate was just low off, so the model picks up stuff a lot better now. After like 1 or 2 epochs, you should be able to see your model learns. There were 2 other fixes that were related to the train profile auto detection that had to go in. One of which was just about reading the profiles from disk versus some encode defaults. Nothing super big, super important, but just quality of life improvements overall. And the full training one, users should notice a pretty significant increase in the learning of the model.
Okay, so it's a lot of quality of life, and then also improving training. I also thought there was like a few, or like a few, but there was one AMD fix as well.
Yeah. So the auto detection was only supposed to be implemented for NVIDIA, but AMD ROCm has a translation layer for CUDA. So it like if you detect CUDA, it'll also detect AMD cards in that, which is not what we were going for. So it's just like a one-line fix to say like, all right, if CUDA and not AMD, basically, is what it was. So we're gonna add auto detection for AMD once we have more official support for those cards. But for right now, the auto detection is only for NVIDIA cards.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Charlie. The UI has actually, before we continue, are there any other questions for version 0.19.2? I'll take that as a no. So I'll continue on to the next topic. The UI has finally been announced. Version 1.0.0 beta 2 has been shared on the Slack channel this week. There was a silent release last week, but now with just try to get things going. But now we're making it more public. It's still in beta, so we haven't like fully announced it yet, like on InstructLab, LinkedIn, and other social media. For now, it's only been announced in the Slack, as far as I know. If you have the time, do check it out. It's also available on ui.instructlab.ai, so you don't have to like download it and run it locally. You do have to be a part of the InstructLab public group repo. So if you need access to that, then I would go to the Slack channel and ask for it there. I do want to say that the UI is going to be used, as far as I know, is going to be used for the community model build. What users can do is, go ahead, JJ.
Yeah, I'll just throw in a couple things there because I guess Anil or Brent aren't here. But this was a massive win for everybody. We all know that the adoption of writing YAML and the workflow for the downstream users is challenging. So this UI is designed to make people's lives significantly easier. It does all the formatting for you. It even creates a directory inside of your GitHub namespace, and then even creates the PR for you too. So in theory, you should be able to actually, walk through the workflow and not actually understand. As long as you have a GitHub account, you should not have to worry about anything, any Git changes, any YAML changes, anything like that. There's an actual workflow to it, which is really nice. We saw this as an immediate challenge when we first started this project, and kudos to everyone to get this off the ground. This is truly amazing. Anil and Brent and Greg and team are and Ming, if you're on here too. Seriously, it's really awesome.
And the UX team, we had a couple of UX people helping out, and they did a great job with the look of it.
Mhm.
So a huge thanks to them as well.
Now, Mo, can we get a link from the main site to this now too, please? From InstructLab.ai to this.
For the UI?
Yeah.
The only thing is, if you need access to a membership to use it, I wouldn't want to send people to something that they
Good
can't
point.
use, right?
Hopefully, eventually,
We,
we'll be able to get. Oh, hold on. I don't actually we're gonna turn that on. Sorry, Nathan. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we also still need a link to the new doc site for the main site.
Do we
We
have
know
a
who owns
maintainer
that?
for the website? Like
Yeah,
a named maintainer?
I don't think so.
We have
Look on Kelly's face.
well, we have GitHub teams. So let me look. These
So this would
are
be
the
a cry for
folks-
help or participation if anybody on the
Well,
call would like to
there's-
step up.
No, this is it's you and 4 other people are website maintainers.
It's me. Okay. There's a Taylor Swift song for that. Okay. So what we probably should do is try to see if anybody in the existing website maintainers group is interested in stepping up, and if not, maybe we can recruit somebody who's interested. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just message somebody in the group, and we'll go from there.
Okay, sweet.
I'll take that. Back to the UI. Like I've been attending the meetings, and I agree with Julia and JJ. The UI looks very nice. There's been a lot of thought put into it. There's like half of the meeting is always dedicated to changing the layouts to try to make it more user intuitive and user friendly. And I do think that with this UI, if I were to make a workshop for people who aren't as tech savvy, I feel like it's a really good addition. That's essentially all for the notes. If there's anything else somebody would like to add, feel free to do so. And if there isn't, then I'll most likely just end the meeting.
Are any of the UI folks on the call? Or, I'm sorry, UX folks on the call? No. Okay. I did want to talk with them. I will say, if I may.
Go ahead.
So I started a UX channel in Slack. We have the Tech Exchange event that's coming up. And so we'll have a lot more eyes on the community. So what I had asked in the UX channel is if anybody had bandwidth to do just a quick review of what is that sort of red carpet experience if I've gone to this conference and I want to learn more about InstructLab, and say I go to the GitHub site, what does that look like? And let's get any of sort of nits or issues fixed in that path. And then the other thing is like the first time user experience, doing it a real quick run through and seeing if there's any little fit and finish issues that could be addressed. Those would be good things for anybody interested in UX to focus on. And I put it in the UX channel as suggestions. that would be timely at this time.
Okay, I'll bring that up for the meeting, the UI meeting tomorrow then. That's all right then as well. I will mention that I started writing a little guide on the UI, just like going through it and like installing it locally and like logging in, chatting with a chatbot. And I haven't started it yet, but I'll be writing like how to contribute skills and knowledge on the website, and then viewing your skills and contributions in the dashboard. So I'm hoping to get that done within this week. I do need to get the public access, InstructLab public access. So JJ, I see you have your hand raised.
If we were just throwing things out there, I wanted to also do a pitch for the office hours again. I'm still there, still doing it. We have people show up occasionally, which is really nice. But you know, it's an opportunity for us to work on stuff together. Or if you have questions, especially coming to the ecosystem or the taxonomy, or frankly, I spent a lot of time doing the community model build work in there too. So if you have other questions, never hesitate to come by those office hours. And at least in the US, that's when I'm doing it. I know Carol and Leslie run the EMEA ones, though I think they are going to be held off for a little while. But the US ones are still running. Cool. Yay. Anything? No? Okay.
Actually, that is a good thing you mentioned with the EMEA. Yeah, because Carol is currently on PTO, and then when she comes back from PTO, she will be at the IBM Tech Exchange, and then at All Things in Raleigh. So for the whole entirety of October, she won't be attending these meetings as well, which is why I'm leading today's meeting, and I'll be leading the meeting for next weekend and the week after as well. For the EMEA meetings, I'm not sure if I can step in, but if I can, then I'll try to sort something out anyway. Is there anything else somebody wants to bring up? For the for the website container, I'm not sure. I just clicked on it there and it seems to work fine. Let me try it on my personal. Go ahead, Mo.
Sure. JJ, you mentioned the community model builds. It's been a while since we checked in on that, so I was wondering what the current state is and if there's anything I can do to help.
Sure. So I still don't have hardware for it. I've had many people come into me and promise hardware, and no one has followed through with anything. I have actually built some playbooks, Ansible playbooks to provision IBM Cloud resources and actually provision a machine on IBM Cloud under my namespace now. I'm in the process of getting the H100 from IBM Cloud, and I can figure out a way to run it over a weekend in an automated fashion, and then build the model community build on there automatically, which will cost a significant amount of money, but at least it won't be a machine just sitting there. And the playbooks that I have written, as long as we're running CentOS 9, in theory, I can run it on any backend because it's very generic, which is nice. Haven't released them to the community yet because they're all just kind of like JJ's brain. But eventually I want to give this to the community so anyone can run this. But I've actually had recently people ask about best practices for Q&A.yamls and things like that as a whole. But my running line is we can't have best practices until we have practices. And I need to iterate on the community model build before I can tell you what actually works, which means it goes back to the resources problem, which is I need consistent resources that don't take a amount of time to run this stuff.
Is that IBM Cloud Pass something that you can use right now, or is that like issues with funding or?
That's actually a much more complex conversation that we should have not on a recorded line.
Sure.
Charlie, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, so I kind of just wanted to chime in there on a couple of things. In terms of the best practices, I kind of been feeling the same way, and people have been asking a lot of questions just in general about like how to run the workflow in today's version of InstructLab and stuff like that. So I've been putting together a kind of lengthy blog on like a actual example of like here's a Q&A, here's the things you would run for the normal person given like these 3 hardware profiles. And I think it's been a good exercise, and I think like once it's done, it'll be done kind of soon. That might be good to kind of spread out to people. And additionally, part of that blog is kind of talking about the concept of CPU training in the sense that like if you have a pretty beefy like CPU machine or a Mac, you can get a pretty good model comparatively to ones in the H100. So not suggesting that we should run the community model build on a large CPU machine like today, but it's definitely something that we should investigate if like we can iterate on that version of training, because I know that that kind of hardware is easier to get long term, like an actual like server that can run this stuff with enough RAM or some sort of really souped up Mac could even do it. That's something that could be a good long term solution, because I know it's not sustainable to think that we're going to be able to hold on to H100s forever. So that's just something that I think I talked about this briefly with you, JJ, in the on Slack, but I don't know. Just thought I would throw that out there.
Yeah,
So
getting.
you're saying we,
Go ahead, BJ.
I was saying, so Charlie, you're saying that we can run the full fidelity training on other hardware than GPUs? Or is this going to be a reduced situation?
So it's interesting. Colloquially, it's pretty good. I'm still in the process of running eval on the models produced. So like the new CPU training produces .bins, but also GGUFs to like serve and chat with locally. The question of fidelity is the jury's still out, but it's definitely not low by any capacity. And that was just the first pass at CPU training. So like I'm sure there's definitely optimizations to be done to the code that I wrote, because I'm not an expert at that. But like out of the box, it seems to be working pretty well. So over time is kind of what I'm saying. We should explore that as a viable option, as opposed to GPU boxes. So yeah, and the blog that I'm writing kind of describes how the new full pipeline on a machine with like 64 to 128, 64 is really the sweet spot, but 64 gigs of RAM, not even VRAM, yields a model that after 2 epochs like knows things about its knowledge too. So it's not even skills. So that is a good smoke signal, I would say, that eventually we won't be reliant on this hardware, or at least 100% reliant on the hardware, if that makes sense.
Ali, I see you have your hand raised as well.
And it looks like BJ unmuted, but we're not hearing you,
Oh,
BJ.
yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, okay.
I was just going to mention that somebody from IBM Research is also putting together a Q&A YAML best practices document, and we can
I
collaborate.
already have one, Ollie.
Yeah, well, seems like if Charlie's got one, you have one, and Abhishek's also got one. We should try to combine the effort, or like see, at least make sure there's nothing that's like missing from any of them.
Yeah, no, mine's more of like a blog on how to use InstructLab, because I know there's like people have confusion around that today. And I put a Q&A knowledge YAML in there, and I described like the different parts of it, just like very quickly. Mine's not focused on the YAML. It's focused on like with the YAML how to use InstructLab.
Got it.
So it's a little different. I think they're all valuable.
Marty, you have your hand raised. Would you like to add something?
Yeah, Charlie, what you're saying there is really interesting. If we can bring it to that, I suppose the key here is, and you probably know that there's a big jump from writing a blog on how to train a model on CPU and it doing full end-to-end backend. And I think it's the full end-to-end backend is really the big goal here. Not that you can run it on a CPU and train on it, because we know that it can do that. It's the final bit is the big thing. So I don't know if we can, you know, if that's there now, then maybe the key there is to go and see, is there hardware with CPUs and test it to see if it can do it, rather than, or maybe in parallel with the work the JJ is doing on the GPUs. But if it works in what you're saying on the CPUs, then we may not need the hardware that JJ is looking for. So it might be worth going straight to that and seeing how
that's kind of what I'm hinting at. Like, I'm doing an experiment right now as we speak, actually, running the full SDG pipeline on CPUs as well, because I was talking to some folks yesterday. It turns out that works, and kind of with specific flags and specific models used. So like, I'm trying to exercise the code base in a way that, like, on a CPU only machine with like a couple of knowledge YAMLs, can I run full SDG? How long does it take? Followed by how long does a full fine tune take? Followed by eval. So once that's done, and if it yields good results, I think, yeah, we should definitely investigate this. And I've done like bits and pieces of this locally, like on a laptop. It's hard to do on a laptop, of course, because like you have to use your laptop. So and it takes like all the resources. So I've done it like in bits and pieces. I've trained here. I've evaluated a couple days later. But like the time scale isn't super bad. Like, I think SDG, which this is gonna sound bad, will probably take like 18 hours compared to like on a GPU is like this. That's the bottleneck, which I think we could iterate on, because work hasn't been done there to optimize it for CPU. And then training is in the ballpark of the same amount of time, where it takes like 12 hours for 7 epochs or something like that, or like which I think is actually much quicker than on some of the GPUs. Sometimes it takes a little more, like 14. But the models yielded by SDG, I mean, by training, are fine. And additionally, something else that I've looked into is like a box with 1 or 2 GPUs to run SDG, so it's quicker, followed by a full fine tune on CPU. Because like, if you get a box with 1 or 2 cards and then but it has a lot of RAM, you can mix and match, where you can use SDG with VLLM on using the full pipeline, which will take like roughly like an hour or 2, depending on the amount of data you're introducing, followed by the full fine tuning on CPU. And yeah, you need to have a pretty beefy CPU machine. Like the one that I'm running on has 16 cores or 15 cores, probably 16, and then like 64 gigs of RAM. But it's working and it's running. And I know I talked to Ben yesterday, and he said he's gotten this to work before. So I think a lot of this is just that we haven't tried this before. We've been very focused on the GPU workflow, which makes sense because that's where everything is. But if we're looking to optimize cost and make it a thing that regular people can run without having hundreds of thousands of dollars to spend on GPUs, then I think this is something that we should at least investigate in parallel with the GPU version. No, Oleg, I'm using Mixtral 8x7B GGUF. So it's using Llama, right? So like, I'm on a CPU only machine, so we don't have VLLM. But if you use a Mixtral GGUF teacher model with the full pipeline with some sort of GPU layers set to not -1, then it works, and it can load it all, and it yields interestingly good results, or so I'm told. Yeah, it's Q4 KM. So sorry for that rant, but I just know that this is super important, and I think not enough people know that it's viable, that we should probably be investigating this as like a route that we should investigate.
There's no need to apologize, Charlie. I find it very interesting, and it's very insightful.
Yeah, man, I think it's certainly useful stuff. You know, if the CPU story or even an Apple Silicon story is, you know, 90% as good as a full build, and it only takes 10 times as long, then there's certainly a class of people willing to spend the time to get there.
Yeah, because the data produced by the simple versus the full pipeline is like night and day. So if you can get the full SDHE pipeline to run on anything resembling a consumer grade hardware, that's a win, even if it takes like 12 hours or something like that.
Mhm.
So yeah, something we should investigate along, because I know if hardware is really difficult to get to run these on GPUs, then maybe we should invest some time into like investigating beefing up this pipeline. Because like again, like I wrote the CPU training loop with the help of the InstructLab training team, and like it's nowhere near perfect, but if it yields a model that on a laptop learns, then I think that's a good smoke signal.
Yeah, I also think that probably not too far in the future, some of these big AI companies are going to go belly up, and there'll be lots of GPUs available then.
Yeah, true.
Is there anything else to discuss, or? Okay, I'll take that as a no. In that case, I don't mind giving you back the half an hour. Yep. So I'll just end the recording there then, if that's fine for everybody. Thank you very much for attending. I will update the notes with the video recording and with the chat transcript. I'll also add in a few of the extra notes because I